We can call this meeting to order at 6:32. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up is agenda review, which we have one amendment. We're going to have to add just some information about some upgrades on HVAC in Franklin that we discussed at a facilities meeting last night. That affects the current budget we're in. I don't have any other amendments unless Julie does.
Do you want to put that, we were going to have carryover discussion, but with Laura not being here, I wonder if we want to just not have that discussion, or we can, we could put the facility.
Yeah, I agree. We'll trade carryover discussion under old business B, and we'll change it to old business B will be the Franklin HVAC discussion.
Julie and Chris, do we expect to have an executive session tonight? It looks like maybe we do.
It looks like we're planning on one, yes.
All right. If we do, I have an issue. I'll do a finding when we get to that part, but it has to do with a contract purchase that prior knowledge would maybe have a negative impact.
Okay. So at this time, we'll move on to correspondence and public comments. We do have Lauren Howell on the phone, but I believe she's just listening in. So next up is consent agenda, which we would have a motion for approval of meeting minutes for February 2nd and February 9th.
Chris,
Karen's the first.
Look them up because I had a change to the second.
Absolutely. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes for February 2nd. Terry's the first. Megan's the second. Megan.
I don't know if it's important. I had to leave early that night and I didn't see it noted. I think I left around 8:15.
Any other amendments for February 2nd?
Yeah, but Megan, I don't think that was an issue, was it? That in regards to the minutes, was it? Because,
well, it does change the vote counts because at some point the votes go from 9-0 to 8-0, and that explains why.
Okay, I get it. Okay.
Yep. So no other adjustments. All those in favor of accepting February 2nd meeting minutes as adjusted, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0. And at this time, I entertain a motion to accept February 9th meeting minutes. Megan the first, Don's the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting February 9th meeting minutes, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0. Thank you. Okay, on to presentations. First up, we have our elementary administration updates. And first up is Joyce.
Wow, you said that like I knew that. Okay. Well, I'm going to start with the not good news. As you know, there's been rising cases of COVID in Franklin County, and that has affected our school with some teachers and students having to quarantine. Fortunately, for the most part, staff and students have been able to test quickly and get right back to school. When we did have to go remote for a few days, I just was so impressed with how quickly the teachers and families, again, we just kind of went back to our hybrid model, and I really felt like, didn't miss much of a beat. And also teachers did live streaming within a couple of days. They were presenting their own new material and doing mini lessons and conferencing with kids and remotely. And that was, I just was really pleased with how thoroughly and quickly we were able to do that. Also, if we had even a few students in a class that were able to come to school, we said they could come if they had not had to quarantine. So we had a couple of days where we had 3 kids in a class, and parents really appreciated that we gave them that option. And we felt it was really important that if kids could be in school, we wanted them in school. And so we could not have done any of that without, like I said, all the great work that the teachers did. And Terry Sturgeon, our retired kindergarten teacher, I don't know what we would have done this year without Terry. Nancy Wilson, our librarian, Elsa Rude, one of our paras, Heather and Bree helping with planning, Jen McConnell, our music teacher, was in helping to sub, everybody just pitching in. And Alita and Sue have just been incredible. 2 Saturdays and a snow day was when we got calls. And so they were just really, really incredible. We're hoping things will settle down in Franklin County, knock on wood. And with vacation coming, hopefully things will get better. So that was the not good news. As far as other things, my report was there, and I just wanted to highlight, I didn't say anything about the in-service day in January at the last meeting, just because it just happened, I think it was like the day before, and I just really wanted to stress how important I think that day is. It's halfway through the year. We stop and we take a look at our CIP, our continuous improvement plan, and look at, what are the things we've accomplished? What do we still have left to do? So we spent some of the morning doing that. We also did some double scoring of writing pieces, making sure our teachers are calibrated and that we're expecting similar things on kids writing. We also shared some information from block assessments, and just, and teachers gave us updates on their SMART goals halfway through the year. And so the morning was just, jam-packed. And then in the afternoon, we had Sarah Ward, who again, has just, I think, provided incredibly valuable information to us. And we continue to share at faculty meetings what are some of the strategies that teachers have tried. And also wanted to mention, we were really pleased with how many parents we had attend the Sarah Ward parent presentation. And again, she just offered so many strategies that kids could use at home or at school. And every time I hear her, I learn something new. And I just think it's been wonderful. And I really appreciate Kosha having gotten that PD for all of us. I also just wanted to point out the hot lunch program just continues to go above and beyond. This past summer, I think it was 20,000 meals, our small cafeteria did. And I put in the report that, they've just been trying to do like some special things, like with these little jokes and fun facts that they're putting in with the kids' lunches. And they've also made for our celebrations, where in the past we had parents bringing in food, the cafeteria has been providing all COVID compliant, individually wrapped fun snacks and healthy snacks. And they've just really continued to go above and beyond. And it was kind of ironic because today I got this and I had that in my report. And today I got an email saying, hi Joyce, I've been meaning to ask you and then continually forgetting to please let the cooks know how much my boys love their food. They have said repeatedly that the food is delicious and have even asked for some of their recipes for things. Also, and this is her younger son, shares with me almost daily the joke he gets from the cooks each day. He really gets a kick out of them. Anyway, I just wanted to pass along something purely positive with everyone. And that just takes me back to something I left out when I was talking about the COVID stuff at the beginning. Our families have just been amazing. Making phone calls to people and telling them that their kids can't come to school for a day or two or whatever it might be and having to get tested. We have had no one give us a bad reaction. I mean, and actually offered to people buying us wine. They so appreciate everything that everybody's been doing. They've just been amazingly flexible, and just accepting that there's a pandemic out there and we are all doing the best that we can. The other huge news we had was around facilities, that we finally hired a custodian that we've been looking for I don't know how long. Laura would probably say it seems like forever. That's what it seems like. So we're really pleased about that. And I mentioned a few other things in the report too that you can see about starting our pre-K to K transition activities. I don't want to talk about the Super Bowl IV with staff versus sixth grade, because that was a dismal loss for the staff. We're really looking forward to a live game next year. And then February 5th, we had the half day in service where we use for our data analysis, not only STAR 360, which you'll hear more about in March, but also developmental spelling, our K-2 high frequency words, and math screener. And those assessments are discussed in 3 to 6 PLC and K-2 PLC. And then we share as a whole school, and we look at all the strengths, needs, and very specific next steps for individual students. And this week is Spirit Week. And I was bummed we missed today because it was Crazy Hat Day today. So, but we've got Tropical Day tomorrow. So we're excited about that. So that is what's happening in Franklin. Oh, I feel like, what was that guy? What's happening in Lake Wobegon? That's what's happening in Franklin.
Thank you, Joyce. That was great. Next up is Dina.
So, I feel like you've heard a lot lately from Swanton, but we are up and running. Jason, in his updated facilities report, just said that we had our initial walkthrough with EEI, and he was looking forward to those next steps. He also gave a great big shout out to our custodial staff, who spent most of the time last Friday on their shift moving grade 6. So we even had 2 of them in the central building come back the next day to finish up their regular task. And that just really speaks to the high level of devotion on the part of our custodial staff, which we think is outstanding. Trying to keep some things happening. Justina has worked really, really hard this year, trying to keep our PBIS alive and running. It's been a little tougher, but the other day, you can see teachers really trying hard too. The first day it was kind of warm out, so to speak. There was a lot of classroom outside celebrations, which was really good to see. And then tomorrow, Jared Campbell is coming to Swanton School virtually. He's been with us, I think, 3 out of the last 4 years. He comes and he does an assembly, and it's really motivating, especially this time of year, which is always kind of hard come January, February. But he talks a lot about superhero powers, talks about what it means to be an upstander, to just do the right thing. And teachers love him, kids love him. So as part of our all school celebration tomorrow, we are going to have popcorn and the virtual assemblies. He's going to do a K-2 in the morning and a 3 to 6 in the afternoon. Even though it is our last Wednesday for 6th grade to not be there, those teachers, because it's a remote learning day for them, the teachers are sharing the link, so they too will get to take part in that. Just mention the week of February 8th. I think Joyce was contact tracing on that Saturday, and our outcome for that was we had 13 staff members affected. So they were out, and then an additional, I think, 6 more. So that was really a tough week. I do want to say again, though, Dawn Tessier, who is our sub coordinator, works magic throughout the day. When some of our kiddos don't come for the day, she can pull a one-on-one, put them into the classroom. The other thing is, when our paraprofessionals sub for a teacher, they are outstanding, because 9.5 times out of 10, we can't get a sub for them. So when you think about it, you have a professional staff in there working with a right-hand man on occasions. And then we take away that teacher and we're asking the para to step in, and they do an amazing job. We always make sure that their lunches are covered. Many of them insist on doing their own duties, but I can't speak highly enough for the support that the staff gives throughout both buildings. And so we got through that week. So that was probably our most challenging. Grade 6 last week provided 4 days of new learning with the live stream. And there were some glitches, like every day at 1 o'clock, poor Jen Mitchell lost internet. Not sure why that happened, but Josh LaRush was on hand and really helped in any way he could. Once again, I think it was a big learning curve, but our teachers had a great attitude and made it work for kids. Our leadership team has been working to create a plan and a timeline for Sbac. Right now, we are being told that will happen. And if it does, we'll be ready. While I'm sure all of us appreciate that data, losing 2 weeks of instruction to test is a little overwhelming for many of us here in the building, but we've got a plan for that. A big thank you to Jess Borbo, Josh LaRush again. He got all of the Chromebooks updated. And Jess McPeck takes a look at all of our special ed accommodations. It will be very challenging this year because of spaces. We have so many pullout groups and small groups with accommodations. And right now we're at very, very limited space. So that's going to be our next challenge to look at that. So if it happens in May, we will be ready for that for sure. A couple of other things. Kirsten Belrose just shared some nonfiction work that her students have been doing in Arcadia, which was really good. When I ask for information, she's always ready to send some things our way. And then another big shout out to Lynn Laufer, who for many years was the librarian in Sheldon. She is now retired, but she has been working through a grant. So she is working with our kids, and she's also taking the place of our ELL teacher. So Lynn is doing that role, being an ELL teacher, and also working with kids in a tutoring manner. Then, because Mel Berthium has been teaching, Lynn is working with Mel to apply for a CLIF grant for our library. So it's just another example of how great people are in this whole school district. She's become a real part of our team, even though she's there part-time. And then to take on this role to create a grant for us is just amazing. So a big shout out and thank you for her. We are hoping to be back tomorrow for 3 solid days. And as Joyce said, trying to end this strong as we go into this break. And that's about it.
Thank you, Dina. We have a question from Megan.
Thank you. Wondering, as far as the Sbac goes, I'm in agreement. I would really like to not see it happen this year as a board member, also as a parent. Is there anything that we can do to help share that concern with the powers that be, or is that really just...
I think that's really a Julie question, Megan. I'm not sure.
Okay.
The other thing I will mention, and I think my colleagues know this too, we have to figure out a way, if we have it, we are responsible for testing all of those kiddos that are in VTVLC as well. So I'll let Julie answer that. And believe me, I'm not opposed to Sbac, so I don't want to come across as an administrator who doesn't want to do that. It's just, yeah, I would love the teaching time, but I'll let Julie jump in on that.
Yeah, we've been asking Deputy Secretary Boucher and Dan French the answer to this. The answer is they're waiting for the Biden administration to let them know whether they will be accepting waivers and what a waiver would look like for statewide testing. They are telling us that we don't need to use it for accountability, and we wouldn't be able to really use it even to track data from year to year. So we're a little confused. If we do have to do it, it will be because the feds say, you really need to do this. I agree. I really find the Sbac powerful as an assessment. Having been through multiple other federal and state required assessments from the NSREs on up. But this year, given the fact that we're not entirely sure what it will be measuring, I'd rather have the instructional time. That being said, it is something that we are continuing as superintendents to push on the secretary so that we can ask them their intentions around a waiver and encourage them to apply for one should that be an option. They keep telling us the answer is days away, Megan. That's been I won't tell you how long.
Well, that's encouraging. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's like that movie with Tom Hanks and the Money Pit. It'll be done in 2 weeks. It'll be done in 2 weeks. Thanks a lot, Dina. Next up is Hvac and Yeshua.
Hello. Excuse me. Hello, everybody. I'm going to start out with a fun little story. Every day I help out with temperature checks, and part of with temperature checks, we have to give them hand sanitizer as they go out. We've gotten feedback about our hand sanitizer. The first one was a little too liquidy, so we went with a more goopy time of hand sanitizer. And I've gotten very recent feedback from a first grader who says it's disgusting and he brings his own. And it's adorable because his sister does it and she's fine. He opens it up, he puts it on. He like kind of looks at me while he's doing it, like a reminder that I don't like it, but it's adorable. The other thing is I was recently coached by a second grade classroom on how to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So long story short, to preface, the first day of school, I did the Pledge of Allegiance and stopped halfway as if I've never read it before. So that was, a fun little opening. But I got a note a couple months ago that said you do the Pledge of Allegiance too quickly. So I was asked to kind of slow it down. And so I slowed it down. And I got a very nice note a couple of weeks ago that said, it's a little slow now. Would you mind picking up the pace? A very adorable, very respectful little note. And of course, I went to the teacher and I said, come on, like I need some help. Then I said, oh, actually, could I come in? I'm going to write a letter back that says, would you help me? Apparently, I need support with the Pledge of Allegiance. And so the students coached me and they had a whole way they were going to give me feedback, which was a 2-in-1. Here's 2 things you did great. Here's something you could improve on. It made me a video of them saying the Pledge of Allegiance for reference. And then they gave me a paper that had scoops in the actual pledge to remind me of where I should be reading together. And it was amazing. And obviously I love that they wanted to give me feedback. And what I really like is that they were advocating for what they wanted. They were willing to put in the effort. So I thought that was really, really cool. And I guess the first time, of course, I was nervous, but the first time it was my day to do the announcement and they heard it, apparently I did great and they were all very excited. And of course, part of that is their own coaching. So they could take some ownership of that, which I thought was really cool. Other things with Hvac, we're also preparing for Sbac. We've had our group meet a couple of times. We're finding similar challenges as Dina. Well, one, the biggest challenge, I don't really want to do it either, but the one too is where space and kids and adults, because pods can't cross and we're used to having groups pulled out and they work together in a separate setting and we can't do that. So we started that conversation last week and there's some bumps in the road that we're going to have to try to figure out. We are fortunate actually that the white building on the top level is empty because of 6th grade moving, that we're going to definitely need those spaces. So that was definitely good. We also had the data day, which was really interesting as Chris, the coaches, and I prepared data to work with teachers. We found that 20% of our students identify as Native Americans, specifically Abenaki. And that's a really high percentage and something that I personally was unaware of. And there's no sign of that at school, if it makes sense. Like there's no way of identifying that there is that high of a population. So it's something that I walked away with, and I'm going to work with Jeff Benet about how that can look a little different for Highgate. Because I think it's something certainly for us to focus on. And some of the demographic data we looked at was really interesting. You know, we were comparing girls to boys and students on IEPs or our Native American population, really trying to make statements about, according to the data, what does this mean as a grade level? And we're going to take that conversation to our continuous improvement team about how does that look at a school-wide level. You know, if boys aren't performing as well in writing, what does that actually mean for us? And our data certainly showed that writing is where we need to focus on. And that was actually school-wide, which it's not surprising at all because information was put out there that reading or writing was actually probably going to take a hit during COVID. And it's certainly true for us at Highgate. So we definitely have some work to do. And the CIT team will certainly be focused on that. I also wanted to say we have this portrait of a graduate MVSD group, which I know Terry, I think, is the member on there. And we had a great visit or the meeting last time, which I have 3 student representatives and then Craig Aylward, who is our PBIS coordinator. And it was wonderful to have kids talk about what they wanted to see in their communities and how they wanted to see the schools connected and things they wanted to offer. They also brought up what are some challenges for Highgate and how they want to be able to make that better. So it was really awesome to have these 5th and 6th graders really talk about what they'd like to see in their community, which I thought was wonderful. And again, how we can connect all of our communities together as MVSD. And we have our next meeting tomorrow afternoon, which will be wonderful. I'm definitely looking forward to that. I also, and this is just, I really want to shout out to Julie, and I want to do it here. I'm sure you all know, but COVID was wild, I think, for us for a couple of weeks. And I know the last snow day, I think she had me texting her at like 6:30 in the morning. And then she had to talk to Franklin. And it's just a lot. But Julie has been just go with the flow, help us figure it out, keeping a great attitude, even though I know she spent a couple of weekends in a row dealing with it. And so I know I had sent her an email just saying, I appreciate it because it can go in a really different direction. But when we were there, and even though it was actually 3 hours wasted of our time because we didn't have to do anything, we at least had a good system, put it all into place. And I really appreciated Julie's leadership with that. And now I think that's everything I have. And Chris, do you want to add into the end here?
Yes, and I have to say that I walked into Mrs. Labruciano's 2nd grade class as they were planning this pledge lesson for Yeshua, and I'm going, what is going on here? But they were all so excited to tell me what was going to happen, and I was kind of waiting with anticipation of this lesson. So it really was great to see. On a more serious note, I've submitted a letter to Julie, which is she's going to submit to you all that this is my last year at Highgate. My partner Nina and I are getting married in June, and we are moving to North Carolina in August. So this is the last hurrah for me at Highgate. I did tell our staff 2 Fridays, the data day, so 2 Fridays ago at this point, and it's very, very bittersweet. I am quite sad to be leaving Highgate. It's a great place to be. The kind of progress that I've seen over the 4 years that I've been here has been fantastic, and I know that it's just going to continue. The trend line is going to continue going up. The leadership, when I mean Yeshua, and also the teacher leaders that we have on our staff are outstanding. We're in a great place, and it's sad to leave in the midst of that, but I'm obviously excited for the things that are pulling me away. So thank you, especially to Chris, and the Highgate School Board was amazing, so supportive of me as a new administrator, and I talked with Pat recently, and we were reminiscing a little bit about the days of yore. And anyway, I just really appreciate all the support, Chris. And that's it. Thanks a lot.
Congratulations, Chris. You'll definitely be missed, but good luck on your move and your future endeavors. You'll enjoy the weather better there, I believe.
I have the weather saved as a city. I have Chapel Hill, which is kind of like the area we're looking for, saved on my weather.com app. So I open it up every now and again when it's particularly frigid here, and just look at it longingly.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck to you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that concludes our elementary updates. Any questions for any one of the three? Seeing none, we can move on to our next presentation, which is our weighting study overview.
So I am not going to share this entire study with you, but because we have some significant movement right now with two bills in the General Assembly, H54 and S13, and we've recently had requests for testimony from school board members, et cetera, I wanted to give you sort of an overview briefly about what the weighting study is about. And I will tell you, it's very controversial across Vermont because it would affect school districts very differently. And this school district would not be tremendously affected one way or the other. So we're sort of in the middle. So I wanted to make sure you, you understood that. And that's from what we understand right now. So this study was done and presented to the school board in June of 2020. Tammy Colby of the University of Vermont did a very intensive study of our funding formula in terms of our pupil weighting system. Currently, the weights for economically disadvantaged students, English language learners, and secondary level students are they were set decades ago. And also we have a special education census grant coming. So there was a great desire to see if the 173 census block grant for students with disabilities and the way we measure equalized pupil, if they interact in any way. I'm really going to focus just on the weighted for equalized pupils. So generally, there are two ways that school districts and states look to equalize educational opportunities. We have resources that go into supporting students with learning needs. We have different contexts in terms of scales of school and what costs are and resources are in those communities. So they looked at those differences in costs. I'm going to this is one where I thought it was important for you to listen, because some testimony I was hearing, or not testimony, but a legislative meeting that occurred yesterday, there was a lot of discussion about weighting versus categorical grants. So there are really two ways that adjustments are made in budgets and from the state. Categorical grants. So if you think about special ed, that's a categorical grant. It's an amount of money that's calculated and given to schools to be spent on students with disabilities. Another way that funding is impacted is through weighting. We have equalized pupils rather than having, we have about 1,780 students, but when you weight elementary students and secondary students differently, English language learners differently, et cetera, that becomes equalized. And so if you count a student who's an English language learner more than you do a student who is not, that's what they're talking about when we're talking about weighting. Weights do not generate additional revenue. That's a misconception that happens. Rather, they impact our local tax capacity to generate education revenue. So when we have our total spending, we divide it by our equalized pupil, and that number we come up with is our spending per equalized pupil. So if we change that number at all, and this bill, these two bills, would change that. That would then focus our tax, but it would change our tax burden. So if your equalized pupil number goes up, your cost per pupil for your district budget goes down, and your homestead tax rate goes down. If your equalized pupil count goes down, your cost per pupil in the budget goes up, and you have a higher homestead tax rate. So here's what we have now. We have a 1.25 count for economically disadvantaged students. We have a 1.2 count for English language learners. Both of those weights predate Act 60 from 1997. And secondary students in grades 7 through 12 were determined to cost more than elementary students to educate. So they are weighted at 1.13. Not that long ago, pre-kindergarten students were weighted at 0.46. That was with the passage of Act 160. So there was a large stakeholder perspective that went into this and the value of these weights. I was interviewed for this myself, and I think there's clear consensus that the cost factors incorporated in the calculation we have now do not reflect any current educational circumstances. We do not take our weighting and turn that into services for any particular students. It is just part of our tax calculation. That's the way we think of it. We do not target anything. There was definitely an issue brought up about the small schools grant, and there also came up the fact that we really need some targeted grant aid, not weights, but targeted aid for children living in trauma and those who have mental health concerns. I'm going to skip the stakeholder pieces here, except for one thing, because this is something that does affect us. When we see ECP here, we usually think of early childhood, but here we're talking about early college. So students who are seniors, I believe it's just seniors, can go to college and schools pay for that. We do not currently count them as our students. Yet we do have those students who re-enroll in our school. Guidance counselors do work with them. So we do feel that those students should be counted at least a fraction, even though we are not, UVM or Champlain or CCV are typically educating those students. Schools, local schools do have a role and do have time that is spent working with those students. One of the other worries that exists is that in some low spending districts, additional tax capacity could be seen as an opportunity to reduce taxes rather than increase spending to support students. So that's something that needs to be watched. So that just affects, so they identified 5 cost factors. Continuing to want to have a percentage of students who are economically disadvantaged weighted, students who are English language learners weighted, percentage of students enrolled in middle and secondary grades. I believe they're expanding that beyond 7 to 12. There are some indicators for weighting geographically necessary small schools, which from what I have read does not relate to any of our schools. And then there's some population density weighting that may occur as well. So here's a chart that I think shows the difference the most. And again, this is a proposal based on this study, and we're not sure what the legislature will do. Currently, the rate for students living in poverty, it's a 0.25 additional count. The recommendation is for that to go up to 2.97. For English language learners, it's also an increase up to 1.58. Also weights for school districts that have less than 100 students from 100 to 250. Population density, if there's less than 36 folks per square mile, and so forth, goes up from there. So there's a gradation there. They've increased for middle school enrollment, secondary enrollment, and I do not see a weight for pre-kindergarten. So the conclusion really is that there needs to be an adjustment. It has been relatively unchanged for 20 years. They're widely outdated and fall short of equalizing costs across school districts and opportunities across the state. The way that the state calculates the number of pupils has long been criticized and is out of step with contemporary educational conditions. This year in particular, the equalized pupil count has been fraught with problems. Some schools were just being told recently that their counts are completely off. We were not in that boat. And policies such as flexible pathways and early college pose new challenges for how the state counts students. And the existing weighting does not touch that. So again, this is redundant. So the recommendation, and you see that in the bills, is that they want to modify equalized pupil calculation. However, that may not translate into increased levels of spending. So that's a worry. They worry that additional tax capacity might be seen as an opportunity to reduce taxes rather than to increase spending for English language learners and students living below the poverty line. And there's also a new source of categorical aid. So that's very brief, very fast, but I just wanted you to have a little context so that if you are asked to look at a bill, if you're hearing about things you're reading those legislative updates, and the VSBA has their little blog that they do, that you have a little context. So when we talk about spending per equalized pupil, this is what we're talking about.
Terry raised her hand. Terry.
Thank you. I had put a question in the chat box, but my question, and I wanted to add two things first. I thought that was really helpful, Julie, and I thought the VSBA giving us the Cliff Noted version of that weighting study was really helpful as well. So shout out to SVBA for that, and also for the socks, because I haven't thanked them for the socks. And I never thanked you all for the board appreciation certificates that you all sent us from the kids and everything. That was really beautiful. So thank you. And then what I wanted to ask you about, though, is I had some questions about that statement about communities using extra funds to lower taxes. The whole system is set up so that communities have to struggle with that. So I don't quite understand. I mean, that's why it's so much to unpack.
I think the easiest way, I'm oversimplifying, and I'm acknowledging that. You should hear our conversations in Champlain Valley superintendents, where you have Winooski that has high poverty, high number of English language learners, and you have South of Burlington. So you have very disparate communities who have weighting systems that don't benefit one over the other because it's so antiquated. With this shift, the tax burden may benefit Winooski voters so that they actually have greater capacity without their taxes going up to spend more dollars per pupil and support struggling learners, students who are learning English, etc. South Burlington taxpayers would likely have their taxes go up significantly if they change nothing in their spending. So when you listen to Tammy Colby speak, she has this 10,000 foot from the balcony view of Vermont and all of our students. And the weighting is shifting. And you shouldn't think about winners and losers. However, if you live in a community that's going to see its taxes go up 30% from last year without anything changing, the local taxpayer would feel that they're a loser there. Another community, I'm not going to pick Winooski, say we have a small benefit from a change in the weighting. This board would have to really have a discussion about our newly found tax capacity and whether we use it to reduce our spending per equalized pupil and lower the tax rate, or whether we use it to add services that are targeted for students who struggle. That's the conversation. Some communities may just say, score, we're a winner. Our taxes are going down, and not actually add any services. And I don't know that we would necessarily need to add services outside of COVID. I think that our communities and our schools do that. If we have a need for more English language learner services, we add it. We intervene, we have interventionists, all of our schools. So we are very targeted with what we do and how we staff our schools. But it hasn't been tied to our equalized pupil weighting in the past. And these bills are trying to shift that so that there's a greater correlation.
Well, just as a follow-up question, I think equity is really important. And so I wondered when I was reading this, I know that the small school grants take care of some of this and they're hoping to fix that. But what about grants to English language learners, to free and reduced lunch, like the schools that you say might lose and the schools that might gain? Were they getting grants in a different way? I mean, I'm thinking of some of the schools that weren't having the money. But yeah, and this is a whole nother, and you can fill me in on some other time. I just think that this is really interesting, this whole weighting and the whole funding of our whole state and how we do this.
Tammy is much more eloquent at explaining the difference at addressing cost, not spending, but cost. And that you can either address it through a categorical grant, like special education is, or through the weighting, so that you're spending, you have more capacity in your spending, in your tax base. So one of the things that I heard yesterday in the legislative meeting I attended were some legislators talking about more categorical grants rather than weighting, which I think is outside the scope of this bill, but we'll see which way the legislature goes with this, because it's a pretty hot potato. You have a lot of school districts with a lot of representation in the General Assembly that would be negatively affected by this bill. And you have others that are representing districts where they would really expand their tax capacity. And the whole legislature is very invested in educational funding being fair and equitable and services being provided to students who struggle. So it's not a quick and easy fix. And it probably should not be done outside in isolation. If you look at the Act 173 special ed funding bill, you think about education funding as well, and then you look at weighting. Maybe those three things together should be looked at in a package. But I have not been particularly vocal on this issue because it is not, we are not a community that is impacted hard with this bill, one way or the other.
But we are, in the grand scheme of things, when you look at cost per equalized pupil and certain places that have less equity because they give more to their students and we pay for the difference on some of that work. Yeah.
Well,
anyway, this is a whole nother story.
Yes, it is.
Don.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Julie. That was good. Remember, you and I were in Fairleigh, I think, 18 months ago. Heard that lady present. I've been following it quite a bit through VSBA, but the one thing I would like to say to people to keep an open mind is that having worked on school finance in the legislature, the one thing this weighting study is doing is saying we need a research basis for the way we distribute funds. We raise funds, we distribute them to school, weighting, whatever. Because right now, the most I could ever find out how the whole weighting thing came into place, like, I guess 40 some odd years ago. Small group of people sat around and said, if you got poor kids, we should give you a little bit more. High school kids cost a little bit more. It's not based in any type of research, but it's kind of taken on a life of its own over decades. And regardless how this comes out, if we can come up with a system going forward, because we know that education gets more and more complex. So I'm following it, I'm interested, but I ask people, whether you're for or against it, keep an open mind that something happens so that we know why we get the money, not because somebody thinks that English, English is a second language type of thing, English language learners. Some of these children are very articulate, very intelligent. Doesn't mean we shouldn't get more money. So it's a crazy system right now. It's a crazy system with no research base at all. At least if something comes out of this, so you can kind of predict and know that there is a rationale. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Julie. Any more questions or comments regarding weighted study? Seeing any. So thank you, Julie. We'll move on to new business. And first up under new business is a statement of commitment to equity.
Okay, I'm not muted. We met last July and started with deciding we wanted to set goals as a board, as a district, and as a superintendent. The district goal that the board, one of the district goals that the board wanted to set was to have a statement of equity. So I've been working this year on and off with the administrative team, taking the Vermont School Board Association and Superintendent Association definition of what equity is, and looking at how to turn that into a commitment to equity. And we've had multiple meetings, we've done breakout sessions, had a lot of dialogue, and we have put together a commitment statement with some action steps that we'd like to share with you. We brought it last week to the board goals committee and they reviewed it, and that evening I shared it with all of you so you could review it. I'm going to share it now. And my hope is that the board will make a motion accepting this commitment. Let me open it first. That might be helpful. So it says that we believe that educational equity means that each student receives the resources and educational opportunities they need to learn and thrive. In an educational environment, equity means that a student's success is not predicted nor predetermined by characteristics such as race, ethnicity, religion, family economics, class, geography, ability, language, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or initial proficiencies. The Missisquoi Valley School Board holds itself and all administration, faculty, and support staff accountable for building a district-wide commitment to equity. The district will incorporate principles of equity within all policies, programs, operations, practices, and resource allocations. In order to realize educational equity, we will provide high-quality curriculum, program, extracurricular activities, and support services in every school facilitated by quality teachers and administrators. We will go beyond formal equality, where all students are treated the same. Decisions about resources should be needs-based. Achieving equity may require an unequal distribution of resources and services. We will identify and eliminate inequitable practices, acknowledge biases, employ practices that reflect the reality that all students will learn, and create inclusive school environments for adults and children. I know that the administrative team wanted to, we know there's a lot of work. This is a commitment to be better and to make progress toward providing all of these things. And it's important to the entire administrative team, as I know it is to the board, that we do this hard work.
So at this time, go ahead, Don. You're muted, Don. Don, you're muted.
Julie, if you bring that back up on the screen, there was one thing that went through my mind when I read it the first time and then tonight, and I don't know if it's important, but I want to raise the issue. So if you put the words back up, I want to focus, get my magnifying glass out here, where we talk about facilitated by quality teachers and administrators. Back a number of years ago, and this maybe didn't pertain to administrators, but the term was high quality. And so I'm just wondered if we should have high quality rather than just quality. And maybe nobody else remembers that. Maybe I'm fantasizing, but there was some standard. I don't know if it's when paraeducators had to get a license or some of the money that came down, but people had to show either and again, it may not have been teachers, that they were of a high quality. There was a standard. So I just raised that.
We had language through our federal grants and No Child Left Behind where we had to be highly qualified.
Okay.
So we talked about the word high quality teachers, and for people, it didn't sound right. So we felt that was implicit in the word quality, is that our teachers are not just highly qualified. You can meet the requirements to be highly qualified, but not be a quality teacher. That comes with training, right? So
I have no problem with that. I just wanted to raise the issue because I think in the hiring process, we always, I believe, try to go for high quality people.
Well, the first budget says high quality curriculum. I mean, the first bullet talks about high quality curriculum and programs, et cetera. Right, so you are talking about high quality. Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Peter, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Just a question on the first paragraph. Success is not predicted or predetermined by characteristics. And then the last characteristic is initial proficiencies. So does that mean where the child starts out in learning, what they know when they start? What's the thinking there?
That's exactly right. So if I come into a school and I'm not at grade level, that we don't look at that child and say, oh, well, they're behind. They're going to be behind. so that if you come in where and you've got skills to make up and you have learning to do, we don't look at the child who's behind or struggling with any less high expectations than a student that comes in at grade level.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion to accept the statement as read by Julie. Megan's the first. Steve's the second. Any discussion? Terry.
I just want to say, I think that you all did a beautiful job of putting that together. Thank you. That's a complex one, and you did a beautiful job. So thank you.
Would appear we're ready to vote because I don't see any other hands raised. So all those in favor of accepting the statement as read, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0. Okay, next up under new business, we have our first reading of the flag policy.
So this is a policy that Amy Rex from Milton shared with me. They put it in place because they were having a Black Lives Matter flag request, and they knew that there would likely be a reaction to that request. Chris and I discussed it. I had it drafted as a procedure. Thank you to those of you who looked at it and found issues. I had forgotten about the POW flag that we have up. I had some other formatting challenges, so thank you for that. The purpose of this is that we want to have a policy in place so that if the board does approve a Black Lives Matter flag request in the future or another kind of student request in the future, that the board, it's clear the board makes that decision, that you want students to be the ones making requests and not any outside person with a political agenda just bombarding the flag with, well, you know, the school board with, we want our flag up, we want this, we want that. That it gives you a framework around which to make those judgments, including supporting the mission and visions of your schools.
Not seeing any hands raised, so we'll build. Oh, Peter.
Just I didn't just read it, I read it earlier, but it sounds like we're only talking about one flagpole at MVU and we're not allowing flags to be flown anywhere else. Is that what this says?
Isn't it one flagpole per school? That's how I read it.
I can adjust that. I was thinking about just that the other day. The example I got from Milton was only referring to their high school in front of the building flag. We have flagpoles all over our district. We have multiple campuses. So if you like, I can adjust that so it's referencing all of our schools. I'm seeing a lot of nods there. Okay, so I'd be happy to bring that back to you next time with adjustments for each school there rather than just referencing MVU.
And when it gets brought to the board, somebody wants to fly a flag or a student, we're saying we're only going to have one flag at a time, and are we asking for a time period of when they want to fly the flag, or is that what we're talking about?
We already fly 4 flags in many of our schools. So that would be something the board would consider, whether the additional flag we wouldn't want to displace another flag, for example. So these are all things you'd want to consider, but not all of our schools have 4 flags. We currently at MVU only, we have the US flag, the Vermont flag, the Abenaki flag, and the POW flag. When you have to go to half-mast, you take the other flags besides the US flag and state flag down. So there are pieces around that. If we add a flag, it could be that we do it for a long period of time, for the whole school year. It could be for a period of time.
Okay.
So I'll make that change and bring it back next month.
I was just going to say, at this point, I think we can look at this again at our next reading. Thanks for the input. And let's see. Still under new business, we have an employee issue, which probably will have a fighting for executive session.
Yes, I'd like to recommend that we have an executive session to give you, to keep the board apprised of an employee situation.
I don't think we have an official request at this point from a student, do we?
The student that I spoke with earlier has been in touch with Jen DeSorger and the DEI committee. We are looking at a request later in the spring.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean at the board level. I just knew that there was goings on about.
Yep, it will be coming to the board later in the spring. Students are getting feedback on their presentation.
Okay. Let's see. So we're done with new business. We're on to old business. First up under old business is a petition waiver statement. Also possible finding for executive session.
So I don't know if you have all read the information from our school attorney. If you want to discuss it, we should discuss that confidential attorney guidance in executive session. If you want to read make the statement, that we could do now, but I assume you want to discuss it first.
I think we should discuss it first, yes. Okay, so next up under old business is our adjustment where we switch from talking about carryover discussion to talking about a HVAC upgrade in Franklin. Last night, the facilities board met with Steve Ballard, the Franklin director, and they've been trying to upgrade their HVAC like all the schools. But they were able to obtain some of the COVID grants and funds and whatnot, and they've already paid for all the materials. So now the only thing left to be paid for would be just the labor. And the 2 companies that need to come and do the work have openings in February vacation that they can come and do it. So that's why we met last night to move this along a little bit. The total funds that they need for labor, I believe, was $41,333. That's between the 2 companies. For the most part, this is within their budget already under the facilities. It may not have been earmarked exactly for this purpose, but with COVID and everything, things have been shuffled around. Projects haven't been done. Projects are getting done. Point being is by doing this, once they're done at February break, they will be 100% up to snuff for HVAC. They'll have the correct filters. They'll actually have a pretty good supply, maybe up to 2 years, depends on how quick they get dirty, basically. And all their systems will be on much more modern control systems. So Steve will be able to control this, everything from his computer much easier. And each classroom will be on its own controller and have its own sensors. It's a much better system. And so our recommendation as a facilities committee was to move forward with it. And we're just bringing the information to the board. It doesn't affect, it affects the budget we're in right now. And Laura assured us that we're on pace and it should work out fine.
Mhm.
So any questions or comments about that? Or if Peter or Don want to add something? Cool. I think we're all set on that one. So next up under old business is budget information sharing.
So I wanted to make sure that you have been looking on our MVSD website. We have been putting out videos. Dina and Justina and I will be recording Swanton's video tomorrow afternoon, and Robert will make us sound good and get rid of all our bloopers. I feel a little bit worried that he has a secret blooper reel somewhere of all of the mistakes we've made. I am hoping that he doesn't do that to any of us, because it is sometimes frustrating when you can't say words that you've said over and over again. But it has been really great. I think the administrators have done an amazing job of putting together snapshots of their school and what's happening, showing pictures of work that's happening in their school, sharing highlights of staffing, et cetera. And then we're giving the same tax rate information and expenditure information at the end as well, and talking about our process. I want to share with you, I feel like I'm sharing a lot today, but I want to share with you a preview of the flyer that will be in the messenger. Are you seeing it? So we will have a 4-page supplement in the messenger that has the board members, how to vote early, ways to vote early, the letter from the board, updates from each of our schools, the warning, a quick budget proposal, tax rate information, and town meeting day, and where to vote in each town. It's just simple and short, but it's good information that I think will be helpful for those that are not going to websites. The annual report, I just reviewed the final proof today, and that's being printed. Those will be ready. We have our informational meeting. The link is up because we put that in the warning that it would be up, but it will, we'll reshare that again right before the meeting, and that'll be done through Zoom rather than Google Meet. It's a little easier to get the general public in a Zoom meeting than a Google meeting. And excuse me, Tim is working with Robert to get comfortable as a moderator with the Zoom platform, and we will do a little rehearsing beforehand. Laura has had to take some time right now, but we're putting together the presentation. We have the blueprint from previous years. We're going to reformat it a little bit and update the information, and we will discuss who is going to, and I'd like to, I guess, know tonight. Chris, I know as a board chair, you take a big part of the presentation, but you don't usually do it all by yourself. So are there at least 2 other board members that would be joining you in doing the slides for our hearing next Tuesday?
Don't everybody jump up at once. It's you know, I don't mind sharing the stage. It's okay.
You're killing me. You're just killing me. I'll help you if I can.
Yeah, I'll help you if you need any help. Yeah.
Okay, you got it. You got 2.
There you go. It's nice not being all alone, you know.
No, but you got to tell us what to do. You get to be the boss.
Well, we will send an email out too in case anybody else wants to jump on board. And when we see how many slides there are, we'll sort of, you know, we'll make sure we share it with all of you. We'll share it with the individuals in particular of which slides they're going to be reading and speaking to. And then likely I will probably help Tim with moderating by reading questions and calling on people, help him call on people for questions.
Chris or Julie, one thing I would suggest is when they open that, when they start, somewhere each of the board members should be introduced, noted, and a thank you to Megan, maybe in that whole link for who is leaving us. But that way, if there are people in town who don't know who the board members are, unfortunately. So I think that gives us an opportunity to do it. Thank you.
Yeah, just make sure we have like an agenda and a script and we'll do what we can do.
Boy, Steve's getting to be a real diva here on this, isn't he? Do you want a dressing room too, Steve?
Terry, I've known you 100 years, so let's not do that.
We're taking it to another level, folks. Taking it to another level.
Trust me, if I do it, anybody can do it. Piece of cake.
You are all very professional.
Unfortunately, Peter.
Well, on that note, let's see what's next. Other business. First up is COVID updates.
So we've been talking a little bit about recovery planning. I put it in my newsletter this year. We still, on the list of things that Dan French say are coming any day now, recovery plan is on the list. I have seen the draft. It's, I'm glad they're working on it. But one of the things that they've been very clear with us is that we will need to hire a position using our ESSER funding, and we will have plenty of ESSER funding. So I don't want the board to worry about that. To really focus on recovery. They call it a COVID coordinator or something. And I'm going to take that as an opportunity. So I'm thinking that we could really take someone who can work with the curriculum director, student services, early childhood, really work with that team to really focus the recovery planning, the work with principals on the interventions, the tutoring, just coordinate all of those pieces. So it would be for 2 years. So it's not a position you would make permanent, but it's a long enough period of time. So we would be looking for somebody who's experienced, has a number of qualities to help assist in all of that work, and not at the expense of any of the other work that people are doing to increase achievement for students and personalized learning and all of those pieces. So, but I wanted, because some of those things hit the news, right? So I wanted you to know that we are talking about it already, that we will have ESSER funding dedicated for that. And we are looking at something that will work for us. But that's just an example of something. It's a pretty prescriptive plan so far. But again, 3 buckets: academic achievement, truancy and engagement of students, and social emotional learning. Those are all things we're working on. They're all things we want to improve upon and dedicate our resources to. We will take every dollar and every strategy we can. So we're actually looking forward to some of that work. I know Joyce is. She can't wait for the Stern Center to tutor all her kids.
Sounds to me like a great transition job for Dina. That'd give her 2 years to kind of move to retirement.
We have some ideas. We definitely do. But I wanted to just alert the board to that. The next thing on the agenda is principal search. Speaking of Dina, I wanted to let the board know that we have the position posted. We are screening applicants. We are looking to expand our applicant pool. I think you all know that there are shortages of high quality principals, and we are widening our net. We have put together a committee that will have teachers, hopefully Jason Butler, the central office administrator. Don, you volunteered, so if you still are willing to do it, we'll involve you. We have a parent name. Oh, Don, I don't know if you're talking, you're muted.
I volunteered to help because the last committee I was on with Chris Shepard, we hired a new superintendent, and so far it's worked out. So I think we're on a run.
Well, if you can bring some luck, we would like that, of course. So that's our plan, and that we would then screen applicants, bring forward candidates to interview virtually. I'm sure there would be a virtual site visit, virtual meeting, town hall with teachers, community, something like that, and then bring a candidate to the board. So that's where we're at. Bonnie, of course, is in charge of organizing all of it. I will be a part of the committee as well. So she's already developed survey rating systems for each application because that's why we like Bonnie.
So Julie, on a
Yeah.
serious note, because I did reach out to you and say if I could help, but if there's some board member that would really like to do it, I'll never forget, we were sitting at the Highgate School and Tim Magnan was the chair, I believe, or maybe it was Terry. We put together a committee and I was on the committee. And this young guy next to me said, that's something I'd like to do someday. And I said, Chris Shepard, you're in and I'm out. And so then I was out. And then when they went through the search, they needed somebody to come back in. I came back in. So I don't have strong feelings. I'm willing to help. But if somebody's sitting there like Chris, I think that night was kind of like, I think I'd like to do that. And he's done a great job. The only thing was he had to agree to be chair or I wouldn't have let him have the seat. I'd have kept it. So
Yeah,
speak now if you want to do that. I guess you're stuck with me then.
I think that's just fine. Thank you. So yes, that process, I just wanted to give you an update. That process has started. And then you also have Chris Palmer's letter of resignation. And I was glad that Chris was able to tell you in person at the top of the meeting.
Okay, Julie did my job for me. This is getting kind of cool. I like it.
Sorry.
So now we're on to future meeting dates, which the next big one is our February 23rd annual budget information hearing, which will be held virtually via Zoom at 7 p.m., not a.m., p.m. And then next after that, we actually need to reschedule our next board meeting because the first Tuesday of the month falls on town meeting day. And we can't have it that day because 3 board members wouldn't even have time to get sworn in by the meeting. So what would be an available date? Maybe the following Tuesday. I'm not sure. What would everybody's pleasure be on that one?
I'm pretty free, so whatever works for you all.
How about Julie? What does your schedule look like?
Do you want to move it to the 4th, Chris? I don't know. I'm open, I guess.
The Thursday?
Yeah.
Will that be enough time for board members to get sworn in?
I don't know how that's going to work now that town offices aren't open where you can just stop by. Because I think you're going to have to make an appointment.
Well, in Highgate, at least, I think they can meet at the back door, can't they? But I don't know about the other towns.
Right.
So if we do it on the 9th, I'm open. So I'm at your disposal. Your board meetings come first. So if we move it later in the week, you know, the 4th is an option. If we move it to the next Tuesday, we would have 2 meetings back to back, the 9th and the 16th. But that's okay.
Well, this we've been doing that this month, so we're on the roll now. We may as well keep it rolling. I like the 9th. It gives people time to get sworn in, and it's a Tuesday night, so it's pretty normal. So unless there's any objections, I guess we'll change our next. Oh, Peter.
Once you finish with that, Chris, I just have a question before we go into executive session.
Okay. So unless anybody has any objections, we can schedule the next board meeting for March the 9th, which will actually be the second Tuesday and it'll be the Tuesday after town meeting day, which will be held at 6:30 via Google Meet virtually.
Chris?
Done.
Chris, while we're talking about that, I support that, but and we don't have to decide it tonight, but I would ask that we consider if we move to the 9th, we move to the 23rd. And the reason is this is one of those months where we don't meet until April 2nd. And so there's quite a span of time, it seems. And maybe I'm just not looking at my calendar right. So let's go with the 9th, and then at the 9th, we can decide when we want to do the next one.
Don,
Well,
you're
the next
definitely
meeting in
right.
April would actually be April 6th.
So it would be a full, Don's right. It's a long, March is a long month.
Yeah.
So if we move to the 9th, how many weeks is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. So if we move to the 9th, we could also move to the 23rd. And that still gives us a week in between that later board meeting and the 1st of April, which is on the 6th.
History tells me that sometimes March can be a real busy month coming out of town meeting. And we might need that time between the 23rd and 6th of April rather than going 16th. But we can decide that later. The 9th is important.
Megan.
This is just a suggestion that I've recently heard. The current schedule of school board meetings coincides with at least the Swanton, I believe it's the select board meetings. And I had just heard some questions about coordinating schedules a little bit better. So maybe with the new board after town meeting day, maybe take another look at the days of the week or the time.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. I was going to bring that up too, that the select board meeting is at 7 on the same Tuesdays we always meet.
Okay, so at this point, we'll plan on meeting the 9th, and then we'll reevaluate some of our schedule on the 9th. Plus, we'll have a new board member by then too, and we can see how his schedule works too. Okay, and then Peter.
Thanks, Chris. This isn't on the agenda, so I don't expect an answer, but something to maybe in the future we can get a response. But the meetings that we've had recently, specifically with Swanton in the 6th grade, but I think it applies to all grades. With the COVID, the learning from home, kids not being in person, not getting their normal amount of, curriculum and hours learning, are a lot of students going to be behind? Because one of the things that bothered me was parents worried that they're not going to be ready to go to MVU or not going to be prepared for the next grade level. Are we going to be considering, or are there going to be several students held back so they won't be at a disadvantage? I'm just curious on, how all that would play out. So, and like I said, it didn't have to be tonight, but just a question that I was wondering about.
That is something that I have two parts to this answer. One, that's a question that we are grappling with a lot in our administrative team. Not so much students who are attending regularly, whether it's virtually and remote, and in person. But we have some students who have signed up to be 100% remote, but are not really participating. We have students who are homeschooled, but are telling us anecdotally they're not really homeschooling. We have general truancy issues. Dan talked about our percentages are pretty good, but every percentage, there's students that aren't coming to school. And this pandemic has increased that. It may have not have been as much as we feared, but it's still a big concern. And I asked a question of regional superintendents recently. We can't just hold back X number of 7th graders. We can't just retain, we know retention isn't good. It's one thing if you have a kindergartner who basically didn't go to kindergarten. That's a whole other set of circumstances than a 7th grader who basically didn't go to 7th grade. So we are going to be looking at processes, interventions, and supports for that, and have a protocol so that we're really working with families directly and teachers, what's the best thing for that individual circumstance. And the other piece is our recovery plan is really designed not just to be a robust summer school. I mean, that'll be a part of it, right? But we're also looking at long-term over 2 years. How are we going to move kids using data to see where what loss they've had, if any, how we intervene, and how we move students. So we have both those things. And it's going to be hard. But we have a lot of federal money. We have a plan that we'll be submitting to the agency. We don't know what it looks like yet, but we know that it's going to be addressing the social, emotional, academic, and attendance and engagement needs of our students. And that's, again, when I mentioned the recovery coordinator position, it's a serious piece of work. So yes, that is the next several years worth of worry. But specifically about those kids who have been pretty significantly missing. And I don't want anyone in the community to think that our principals, our guidance counselors, our social workers, our teachers are not doing a huge amount to reach out and connect and build relationships. And they're doing constant work for those students who are not very present. But that is something we are worried about, and we're going to have to do it on a case-by-case basis, using some pretty objective standards, I think, to make decisions about whether students progress with intervention or whether students have lost a year. And those are not easy decisions. They're life-changing decisions sometimes.
Chris, I have one other issue before we go to executive session.
Okay, Don.
And Julie, you may have this all under control and all planned, but with Laura McCollister's dad passing away, I think the board should take and make some, I don't know, I haven't read the obituary, I don't know if it's there, but usually it'll indicate donations can be made to XYZ. I think that something needs to come from the board, whether we all bring money to your office, whether we take it out of some account. I don't care how we do it, but I think we should be prepared to do something once it breaks free.
Yep, Dawn, you are not alone. A couple others have suggested that to me, and I assumed the board would be. As soon as I know what the family is looking for and contact information, because some of you may want to send cards on your own as well. But I will let the board know. I don't think we need to vote on it in a meeting. I can do an email to you all and let you weigh in on what you would like to do, and we'll take care of that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Okay, at this time, unless there's something else, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session for 3 issues. One's the legal advice on the petition waiver. Another one is regarding an employee, and then Dawn had one that had a contract issue, I believe. And we're going to invite in Julie, and I think that would be it, right? I don't. And so I would entertain a motion to go into executive session, inviting in Julie to discuss those 3 issues at 8:10. Megan's the first, Peter's the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Bye, everyone. I mean, everybody else.
Motion carried 9-0. Okay, we are back out of executive session. We have a statement in response to petition waivers request to be read, and Devin's going to read it.
During the COVID-19 pandemic state of emergency, the Missisquoi Valley School District Board of Directors, at a duly warned board meeting with the opportunity for public comment, on a case-by-case basis and at the board's sole discretion, will consider whether to warn a vote on a petition submitted without signatures where the voter petition appears to have support in the community and is within the authority of the voters to decide at a district meeting.
Thank you, Devin. I believe at this time we've concluded everything on our agenda. Unless somebody has something to add, we can entertain a motion to adjourn. I do have one thing I'd like to say personally. I'd like to congratulate Megan on her time on the board. It's been great serving with her. A little jealous she gets to not go to all these meetings anymore, but hopefully she comes back at some point too. It's been a pleasure serving with you on all the different boards we've been on. So
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
Terry, you have your hand raised.
So sorry, I got to lower it. I was just going to say, well said, Chris. Thank you. It has been a pleasure. Megan will miss you.
Thank you. I will miss all the meetings sometimes. Maybe not like the back-to-back ones, but back when it was normal schedule.
Right. Absolutely. Don, you're muted.
Swanton used to meet every 6 weeks, Megan. That was fun.
I know. I remember. Hey, I think Toby's coming back, so maybe he'll make another push for that.
Okay. If anything else that, otherwise I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Peter's first, Steve's second. All those in favor of adjourning at 8:55, raise your hand. We are adjourned. Vote is 9-0. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Night. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you. Yeah.